name is Dale Hogan, the District Superintendent for the West Central Area Schools. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video presentation of some slides that are presented at our 5 community meetings. We've conducted 2 of those to this point, and we have 3 more. One will be on Monday night, another one on Wednesday and Thursday. And with the survey that you would have either received by email or in your post office box, or possibly both, it will provide you the dates and the times for each of those 3 meetings. The purpose of the survey is for the school board members to gather information from community members. The process that they've gone through this point has been examining our structures, educational adequacy, renovation costs, cost of new construction, and they've looked at a number of options. And through all those options, they came up with 2 that they placed on the survey. And within that survey, they need to have some feedback at this point to make a determination on which direction to go. Also in that survey are questions that relate to secondary or high school options, and for curriculum and for structure and for programming. And there's questions related to that, as well as questions that are related to childcare program within the school building. So I do appreciate that you take time to go through the slides. This we really want to have as an introduction for you. We don't want this to be the last thing that you do before you complete a survey. We really do encourage you to attend a public meeting. Conversations develop at each of those public meetings that provide additional information and insight. And with the information provided in the survey or provided in this PowerPoint presentation, we've included the things that we think are most pertinent, but obviously there are questions that we hadn't anticipated or things that people just want a little more information or clarification on. So I thank you again for taking a look at this, and I hope you find that the slides beneficial. Thank you. The slide presentation that we have presented for you today is the same slide presentation that was presented at Hoffman on the evening of December 5th. So the information is consistent, and I hope you find the slides beneficial. The slide that we have here, why are we discussing facilities again? And this is a question that I've been asked a few times. And just to review our current facilities, the south construction periods were 1955, 57, and 1970. And the north construction periods at 36. There were 2 sections constructed in the 1950s, and then the final version, which is the gym area and surrounding portions, was 1966. The square footage at south is 35,704 square feet. That's on the small side compared to what we need for education today. The north square footage is at 75,181, and that's very close to what would be expected in a facility to educate our students in the WCA area today and in the future. There are 2 things that really drove the board to begin discussing facilities again. And this isn't something that happened just in the last few weeks or the last month or even over the last summer. It's been on their minds for an extended period of time. But through that process, the board consistently, since I've been with the district, has expressed a desire to provide spaces that enhance educational facilities, enhance opportunities, and especially not to hinder them. And the other thing that the board has been very clear about is that they want to make a fiscally responsible decision for the current taxpayers and the future taxpayers of the district. Recent board activities, it was 2017-18 that they intently began to discuss facility needs, and they spent time, they hired professional firms to provide assistance. They wanted to gather information because they knew that their decisions and their ultimate recommendations had to be based upon some facts and some very solid data that they would have collected. So in early 2018, they contracted with UNESCO. UNESCO's a firm out of the Twin Cities area, and there are number of services that they provide, and one of them is they do facility assessments in school districts. Is an area where they have some extensive experience, and they were contracted in early 2018 to do assessments at North, at South, and also at the secondary school in Barrett. And during the spring and summer of 2018, UNESCO had provided reports and projections, and the board reviewed those. And not only the board, but they were shared with administrators. The board also invited a group of community members in to review the assessments, review the facility conditions, and then make a plan to go forward on how to address what would be deemed deficiencies in the 3 different sites. So with those discussions with the community representatives regarding north and south and the secondary building, they made the conclusion that the elementary buildings, those sites needed extensive work based upon their age, the condition of the buildings. They had been maintained well. When we talk about the buildings and the age that they were in, they're functioning quite well at the current time. But there are some real distinct needs that we see coming in the very near future. So during the summer and fall, they had reviewed those projections from UNESCO on solutions, whether it was renovation, new construction, a combination of each, and they had some cost projections that were provided to the board. I began with the district in July of 2019, and I have some experience with a construction project, and I also had contacts from school districts, superintendents that had just finished projects. So when I looked at the projections that UNESCO had provided, it seemed like some of those projections seemed higher than they should be. So I began the process of identifying through consultation with board members and then also talking to administrators in the district, what are the things that are needed within those facilities. So identified the spaces such as pre-K programs, how many classrooms for the elementary, how many special ed areas, what about gym space, what about other services, kitchen, food service opportunities, storage. So took all of those different spaces and assigned square footage to those spaces. And then I had that verified with Brian Berg of Zerberg Architects and made a determination that, yes, this is a right-sized space. So I did that for individual sites, one to be located in south and one to be located in north. And then I did a projection for a combined space that would be a K through 4 or pre-K through 4 building in Barrett. I did that projection as well. And the cost from those projections, were lower than what UNESCO has done. And through further evaluation by Brian Berg after we hired Zerberg Architects, there were some adjustments on cost that raised the cost a little bit to be more in line with current standards rather than recently historic standards. And probably the big change that the board made, was kind of a shift, is they had used UNESCO and had somewhat of an idea that they might be using them throughout the process. But as we begin to look at the figures, we thought we might be better served by an organization that would be closer to WCA, probably be more in tune or in line with construction costs and availability of contractors in the Red River Valley area and in the West Central area. So they put out a request for proposals for architects and construction managers. They conducted those interviews in early October and did select Zerberg Architects out of Fargo and also Gertz Construction Services out of Fargo to assist with the projects going forward. The physical assessments at South, this was completed by UNESCO. And like I said earlier, they provided reports to the board, primarily in April and July, were where the major parts of the information were provided to the board members. And what they compared was the actual system age for components within the building to the average life expectancy of those things within the building. So for the south site, they had divided their evaluation into 17 different categories. And they looked at heating and distribution and ventilation, electrical, lighting, plumbing, doors, windows, and flooring. So all those areas were evaluated. And of those 17 categories, 14 categories had been identified as beyond the average life expectancy. So if something was put into place in the 1950s, having a 30-year life expectancy, and it's still there, it's exceeded its life expectancy. And 8 of those 17 categories have actually exceeded life expectancy by 100%, or another way to look at that is they're twice the age of what they were expected to provide for in their lifetime. Also, UNESCO identified what level of concern some of these areas might have to be addressed, and they identified things as being a danger area, an alarm area, an alert category, caution, or acceptable. And out of those 17 categories, 9 were identified by UNESCO as being in the alarm status. And that meant that there'd be equipment failure was inevitable, or the system was excessively past its useful life. An alert area is that the equipment is needing repairs or nearing the end of its useful life. And the caution category would be the equipment is operating in a degraded or a less than fully efficient condition. And then 2 categories are identified as acceptable, and that would be equipment is in acceptable condition and within its useful life. Same type of assessment was done for North. However, rather than dividing their examination of the facility into 17 categories, they divided it into 26, but it was still the same thing as heating and distribution, ventilation, electrical. And where things got separated had to be with lighting and plumbing and doors and windows, because they did this for the separate areas of the building depending upon construction age. So again, of those 26 categories, 16 of those were identified as beyond the average life expectancy, and 7 of the 26 categories have exceeded life expectancy by 100%, or again, twice the age of the life expectancy. And then the condition assessment, the level of concern or the level of attention. 12 were at the alarm stage, so nearly half, equipment failure inevitable or excessively past the useful life. 13 were at the alert stage, which again, nearing the end of life or not functioning well. 3 caution, where equipment's operating in a degraded condition, and 3 deemed accessible. And again, just like South, there were no areas that were identified to be in the danger area. The rationale for projections now. So as the board looks at finding a solution on how do we deal with aging elementary facilities, systems that aren't functioning properly, there were things that guided them to wanting to make decisions soon. And one was the aging building structure. And to do things now seemed to be a prudent time to consider, do they do renovation, repair, or do they go or move to new construction or use a combination? So that was the primary factor and the driver, and that's what people see most often within a facility when they first walk in. The other category is Americans with Disabilities Code compliance, and a number of adjustments have been made for people who might be mobility impaired, somebody that might be in a wheelchair. So with code compliance, those requirements, we've made buildings accessible from the street to at least one entry. We have restroom facilities that are appropriate for at least a portion of them have been renovated. If we have changes in elevation, we have a chairlift, or we'll have ramps that provide services. We do have areas in the building which doorways are constructed in a way in which it's difficult for people who are in a wheelchair to get in and out. The doors, the way they open and the way to the door makes it difficult for somebody to get into that door from being seated in a wheelchair. So those are some things that are taken into consideration, and we're in a position which we meet code compliance at this time, but not necessarily serving a student in a way in which they can be entirely mobile within our facility. The third bullet, educational adequacy, is one that takes a long time to discuss and explain, and really without being a teacher in a classroom or a parent in a classroom or a parent who has visited a classroom on a regular basis, these are things that often are not understood. And then the financial opportunity was a other category, and I'll speak more on these in just a moment, but the financial opportunity at this time seems very advantageous to the district and provides some great opportunities. And another thing that's recognized is that there are escalating costs for construction, and when we look at the cost rising over the year, we are projecting a 4% escalation in cost, and when you look at what it would cost a district in the future to do what we might want to do today or within the next couple of years, it's another advantage for the district. The aging building structure, that's the first thing that the board looked at. And when we look at the South, you have the years of construction, but when you look at ages, we're looking at structures that are 64, 62, and 49 years of age, and that's 35 1,000 square foot building. And the north age of structure, there's a section that's 84 years of age, 65 years of age, 68, 53, and that's the building again is about 75,000 square feet. Now, again, the facilities have been maintained well. You go into the building, the floors are well maintained. The place looks clean. The teachers do a wonderful job of decorating their classrooms and making the rooms very inviting. But they are entering their end of their lifespan or years of service. So now when we look at wanting to make upgrades in these facilities and especially to the systems and the windows and upgrade flooring and take care of some asbestos abatement, the extent of the financial commitment to do that approaches the cost of new replacement. The Minnesota Department of Education provides a booklet that has guidelines for construction. And portions of that book are dedicated to elementary, to middle school, to secondary. But there's an overall reference to building age and cost of renovation. And a statement within that manual indicates that as a building approaches 50 years of age, it's recommended that the district seriously consider new construction. So based upon the ages of the facilities that we have here, it would give up an indication that MDE supports new construction rather than some renovation. And then the other thing is, as far as the cost factor, is those costs for renovation approach 60%. Again, MDE recommends that perhaps it might be in the district's best interest for current and for future taxpayers that they look at new construction now rather than trying to renovate something that's going to cost, up to 2/3 of what new construction would cost. Americans with Disabilities Code, I spent a little time discussing this earlier as we've made a number of modifications, but still there are obstacles that exist that prevent ease of mobility for children or staff members or community members that want to enter the facility. Educational adequacy, probably the primary thing that we have in both sites and also in Barrett too is availability of specialty rooms and spaces needed. When the building was constructed, a lot of the services that are provided today were non-existent. So now we have specialists coming into our building, and I talked to Principal Knutson of the secondary school, and she identified 11 different people that come in from outside agencies that need spaces to work with children. And that wouldn't be much different at either North or South either. And at South especially, those spaces don't exist. At North, with what it seems to be an abundance of square footage, those spaces are used. Many of the rooms are larger than they need to be. There are other rooms that are smaller than they should be, but just finding the spaces and availability for those specialty areas or breakout sessions, or even with a classroom that's a bit undersized, with today's teaching model, educators are attempting to have students work in collaborative groups to break into small numbers, work independently, work collaboratively, and bring their information back to share with the class as a whole. So when the classroom is undersized, it doesn't always provide an opportunity for that breakout to occur. Now, a lot of our rooms in our structures are less than the Minnesota Department of Education guidelines. And the guidelines that they have are shown with bullet 2. And for grades 1 through 4, they recommend 850 to 950 square feet. For kindergarten, it's 1,200 to 1,500 square feet because of the opportunity for them to spread out and to have the other activities in the room that take up some space. For early childhood or the preschool programs, the recommendation is 1,000 to 1,400 square feet. And then specialty areas, 1,000 to 1,500, and with spaces that size, we just don't have them available at North and at South. Environmental conditions, whether it's heating or cooling or airflow, lighting, acoustics, all of those things impact students on how productive they are during the day. If students are warm in the months of September or in the months of May, and it's uncomfortable in the building, and we don't have the air conditioning, their academic performance is impacted. If we don't have proper airflow to get fresh air into the building and airflow at the right temperature, they're impacted. Lighting inappropriately causes strain on eyes, and acoustics or sounds from neighboring classrooms, or just the echo within the classrooms presents a challenge challenge for some of our students, and especially a student that may be hearing impaired. But all of these things have an impact on how well the students perform and how well the staff members can get students to respond. So when we look through or look back in the slides, one of the things that the board wants to do is to provide education opportunities and spaces that enhance education and not hinder them. So this is that space where education may be hindered because of the environmental conditions within the classroom. And they also want to look, the board wants to look at enhancement and expansion of programs. As we look at educating students for, in our current education system, what we'd like to see for them as they're adults, when we look at the next generation of students, we want to make sure that we're providing appropriate programs for them. And we are actually looking at expanding some programs to meet the needs of our students, to make sure that WCA maintains that same reputation, that same level of quality that our students have experienced for years, and many of our community members have become to understand as the standard. And then the last thing sometimes seems to be, less important, but the physical appearance of a building definitely has an impact on how children perceive their school as well. I've noticed firsthand when students come into a building that's been renovated or new construction to see the difference on how their eyes light up and how they just really welcome coming into that space and look forward to that school day. The financial opportunity, we see escalating costs. So, both elementary sites are in need of expensive repair and renovation to address the issues, and that's been addressed in the prior slides. So when we look at, the cost to repair, that projection, and the cost of new construction, the board is really challenged to understand which direction the district wants to go. So again, within the survey, they want feedback on what would you like to see done. And to spend the district's dollars wisely on a current investment, and to make sure that they understand the costs going forward of operating a facility is quite critical to the board in the direction that they take. The district currently is carrying no bond debt on construction. That bond went off a few years ago. They are carrying some bond debt for a heating and ventilation system that was upgraded in the secondary building in Bear. The building was constructed or first used in 1995, so we're looking at nearly 25 years of use. So the HVAC system and the movement of air within the building and providing heating and cooling for the facility needed some upgrades. So they did contract with companies within the relatively close proximity to WCA, and that system's been upgraded. There's still some work and tweaking being done to make sure that appropriate heating and cooling is provided to every space within the building. A large advantage for the district is the current bond rates. By talking with Baker Tilly, who's the district's financial manager, similar sized district going out with a bond referendum, the interest rate on those bonds were 2.57% was the interest. So they are at historic lows right now. We're not sure how much lower they would go, but if those interest rates change on the value of the projects that we're looking at, it can be a significant difference, a significant savings if that work is done sooner rather than later. The other thing that we see and we recognize are the escalation of costs on delaying a project. Probably a target area that we might look at for work within the building is in the neighborhood of $35 million. Now, if we delay that for 1 year, and a 4% cost escalation amount or 4% inflation rate, that's $1.4 million just to wait 1 year. So to wait beyond that, the costs continue to go up. And then the other thing, the board has a goal of an election in May. So if things fall into place and they can get feedback from the survey that provides them a clear indication of what direction they might go, they would put a building bond referendum on the ballot for May of 2020. And if there's support at that time, if the voters support that building bond referendum, it provides an opportunity for school district personnel, the architects and engineers, the construction manager, all to work together on planning for the facilities. The teachers would be involved in those conversations, but to actually plan what the facility would look like, get all the specifications completed, and then go out to requests for bids for the work to be done. So all of those bid packages could be put to bid in December or January, which according to our construction manager is the ideal time to be soliciting bids, because contractors are looking for work for the next summer, for the next couple of years, and it puts WCA in a very competitive position to be going forward to get the best costs for construction or for renovation. The options evaluated, when the board started this process and when I came on in July, they had looked at a few or several options. They had narrowed it down, and then through some discussion opened up to all the options again. So there was discussion of renovation only at North and at South, and there was discussion of renovation and new construction, a combination at North and South, and conversation of building new at both of those locations. And they also discussed build a new pre-K through 4 structure adjacent to the current secondary facility in Barrett. Some talk about convert the current secondary school in Barrett into an elementary site and then build a new state-of-the-art secondary. And then the last one was just various combinations of the options I identified above. So through the process of looking at all of those, renovation of South alone is not an option that can be considered because the space is too small, and then we have weight-bearing walls in the building. So to move walls and make spaces bigger, we actually decrease our class size or our class spaces again, necessitating an addition that could potentially go on the site, but with disruption to the educational process during the day. Renovating of North only, as you look at a couple of the areas and the age of the building, it seems to make more fiscal sense to demolish portions of it and build a portion new. There was a discussion that came up at one of the public meetings about how would students be impacted under those circumstances, and kind of a natural thought process would be the new addition would be added. Students would be moved from the section to be renovated to the section that would be demolished. That renovation would take place. When students then moved into the newly renovated space and the new construction, then that would provide an opportunity for the demolition of the older portion. So that's part of that option one. It would be the renovation, partial renovation in new construction at North, and that would be paired with construction of a new facility in the southern part of the district. So with the evaluation of all those options, the board now, as I mentioned before, is seeking community input. They've seen the data, they've discussed it, they've talked over with community members, they've debated amongst themselves on what direction to go. So what they had done then is decided that they would use school perceptions to conduct a survey, and school perceptions is very adept at creating survey questions, creating survey language, putting information into that survey that is relevant, that helps guide a person to provide feedback. And then once those surveys are collected and evaluated, reports are provided back to the school board to give an indication of what the community members through that survey indicate are viable options for the district to move forward to. So be a very valuable tool for the district to have those surveys completed and to get those reports back in January. The board has a strong desire to maintain alignment with WCA's reputation, the expectations of excellence. They have two what would be considered progressive options that have been selected for inclusion. And using the word progressive relatively cautiously, WCA has a strong reputation, a strong history for education. We have a number of graduates of our various schools before it was WCA that have returned here to live because of the benefit that they saw within the area and the benefit that they saw within the education. We have young people that are coming back who have recently graduated from the combined WCA. There are people that we expect will move back after being away for a period of time, once they get to the point in which they're raising families of their own, they respect what was done for education at WCA or in the individual districts, and they want their children to have that same opportunity. So with that in mind, to not want to go backwards, to do something that's progressive and to do something that meets needs not only today but for students in the future, because when the board makes a decision on whether it would be option 1 or option 2 or something similar, that'll be an option that will carry the district for a long period of time, just like the decision to do the grade 5 through 12 building in Barrett. That decision was made 25 years ago, and construction was completed in 1995. So this is a long-range investment, and we expect the facility in Barrett to continue to serve students for another 30 years with some maintenance and some upgrades along the way. So with option 1 on that survey, it would be to build a new South Elementary, and based upon the classroom spaces need and the recommendations for sizes from MDE and from some consultation with board members and with Brian Berg of Zerber Architects, we came up with a square footage amount of 71,500 square feet. And that building would provide the regular classroom spaces that are needed. It would provide areas for special education. It would provide some additional rooms for some potential growth. It provides a very ample space for gymnasium. It provides a kitchen serving opportunity. It provides areas for storage, and it provides that unrecognized area for movement within the building, so your corridors, your commons areas. So it allows for 25% for circulation within the building. And then the other part of option 1 would be to renovate a portion of North Elementary and provide an addition of approximately 27,000 square feet. And then option 2 is to construct the pre-K through 4 building, and that would be adjacent to the current secondary school. The location anticipated would be on the area where the tennis courts currently sit. Our tennis team has been involved in a sports co-op with Morris for a few years, and the tennis courts are an area that's difficult to maintain. They're in a condition of disrepair right now, and with the lack of a varsity program here, it would be an opportunity to use that space in a more productive way. So the existing south site is placed here, and this is primarily for information purposes, because it's not an option that the board sees as something that's viable. So as you look at the building there, it occupies the top half of that area. It's about a 2-block area, but there's no street that divides those 2 blocks. And it has a school building that extends, right to the sidewalk on 2 different sides. There's some parking lot space. But as you look at it, attempting to fit additional space into that, it does become cumbersome. And after that space is added, it leaves no or very little room for additional playground opportunity. It provides for no off-street parking. So this kind of gives you an indication of why the board made a decision that the existing south site would not be a viable option. But with option 1 at north, the area to the left, if you see that, there's the darker gray. That's the sections that would have been constructed in the 1950s, and the areas in yellow, that would be the renovated portion. That's the gymnasium and the classrooms that surround that gymnasium. And then the suggested or proposed area for addition would be somewhere along that right-hand side of the slide, as you see that there, or if you're looking at a direction, it would be to the east of the current gymnasium area. And after that renovated area is complete in the addition, the playground could stay intact where it is, and there could be off-street parking provided in the areas where the demolition occurred. The Barrett site, if option 2 is the one that would be selected, the new elementary in all likelihood would be a 2-story structure that would be located adjacent to the building and adjacent to the parking lot. There'd probably have to be some changes in parking made, potentially to accommodate additional traffic in the area. Some discussion that we've had at the board level, administrative level, is to improve that access road that's on the left-hand side of the screen, and then you can see with our vehicles that are parked there already to provide a better parking area that would extend all the way around to the south side of the building and actually lead to what would be the new elementary site. The projected cost, option one, and within the survey that you received, it identifies this as being a cost of $35.8 million, and that new south elementary would be projected at $20.7 million, and the north renovation and construction is projected at $15.1 million, so a total of $35.8 million. Option two, $29.7 million, is the projection. So the difference between option one and option two is initial cost is $6.1 million. And then also by going to one site, another financial advantage to the district is that we have conservatively estimated that the district would save $500,000 annually. There have been questions about, has there been any allowance for attrition from the district or individuals that would choose to open and roll out if there's just one site, and there hasn't been a projection for that, and there also hasn't been a projection on enrollment growth because of improvement in facilities, and we have not entered either one of those into projections of the numbers. But we are projecting $500,000 annually, and the concern is, well, how do we save that? And it'll be primarily staff. Probably 95% of that figure is staff. We did project in their savings for snow removal, projections in there for saving for lawn care. Because we're coming to one site. We'd also be reducing the amount of mowing space that would be done at the Barrett site also. So primarily it's staff, and with that $500,000 a month, there was a projection of 4 teachers that would be eliminated from the staff at WCA. It also may include some paraprofessionals, perhaps kitchen staff overall, office personnel, and also maintenance personnel. So as we look at that, the concern comes right away. Well, we have a great teaching staff. We have great staff members at WCA. We don't want to lose them. It's our expectation that since a project, whether it's north or south combination or one site, that with the one site option, the reduction in staff may happen by retirements, attrition through resignations, people seeking employment in other areas. And if the staff would still be greater than what would be needed in a one-site location, and we're hiring new people, we'd be very clear with them that we have a position for them for 1 year. We'd welcome them in. We'd have them exposed to our excellent staff that already exist here, and that would put them in a position in which they could potentially move to another school district, or if we did end up with a resignation or a retirement, that they might have the opportunity to stay on with WCA. So this isn't the idea that we're going to be going would be going after people who are experienced teachers to eliminate them and have them move from the community. And just like the other people within our staff also, it would be an intent to make a transition that would not require, or hopefully would not require, that task of having to eliminate somebody from a position. Advantages of both options, whether it's option one or option two, there are definite advantages for the district to make a decision to move forward now. We would provide safe, secure, and convenient entrance for all students. We've made some upgrades on our facilities, but we still have some areas that are susceptible within our building that we're dealing with, and making a new elementary or two renovated a new South Elementary, we could enhance the safety of those facilities better than we can do within the structures as they exist today. We provide safe traffic access and separation of pedestrian and vehicle or bus traffic. So there'd be a definite bus drop-off area for parents who are dropping off kids or picking up kids. It could be separated from that space also to provide additional safety. Provide classrooms and spaces for student collaboration and project-based learning. These are the things that our teachers are wanting to do now. Teachers are continuing to want to do that. That's what the business world is looking for. That's what we need to develop within our students or within our children is that ability to collaborate, to work on projects. And it's been proven that's one of the great ways in which we provide students that become efficient or proficient adults. We provide energy efficient cooling and heating within our facilities. North and South currently do not have opportunities for cooling for classroom areas, and that would be a definite benefit in September and in May for our children. And then consistent heating throughout the building in which temperatures are within an appropriate range throughout the day. And both options would still provide the necessary green space for playgrounds and then potentially for future expansion of buildings as well. The advantages of option one definitely makes use of the North Elementary space. I mean, there's a section built in 1966 that would be a viable use with renovation and addition. It means 3 sites to allow shorter commutes for many of our students and families. So it maintains a presence at the north end of the district and the south end of the district. And then parental convenience for pre-K families who live in Elbow Lake and Kensington, because they have the opportunity to, drive their children to the door of the school or perhaps walk, even the children to walk to school. The academic advantages of option 2 include financial savings for taxpayers. That would be, initial savings of $6.1 million and a conservative estimate savings of $500,000 annually, which assists the district in managing the budget. It would improve staff efficiencies. We'd have staff not traveling between buildings. We would put them in front of students rather than behind the steering wheel and the windshield of a car. Provides an increased opportunity for grade level collaboration and to assure consistent application of educational practices, for each grade level. Right now we have, our North Elementary and our South Elementary, and as much as they would work to move at the same pace and make sure that everything's covered consistently, there'd be a better opportunity to work that within one building with 3 or possibly 4 sections. Currently, our principal meets with staff members from both sites on a regular basis to make sure that they are kind of moving in the same direction. It provides optimized opportunities to share specialized staff personnel between buildings. So when we have individuals that aren't employed full-time at one site or the other, again, we put them in a vehicle and we end up, spending district dollars for that commute. So we'd like to eliminate that time, or it could be done with one site. Reduces duplication of human resources. As you eliminate that travel time, you can reduce the number of people that are traveling, but you also reduce the number of people that are required to run a building, because you with the elementary at one site, you have less square footage than you have with 2 sites, and also the maintenance for of programs and people who provide outside special services. One thing that we face right now with 3 sites, we have mental health professionals, we have special ed professionals that aren't our employees, but they're provided through other agencies. They serve 3 different buildings, but they're not here in Barrett every day. They're not at South every day. They're not at North every day. So children and staff members only have the opportunity to see them as they're scheduled to be in those buildings. Provides a convenient opportunities for cross-age academic activities and mentorships. We have a great group of upperclassmen at WCA that our young students, should be exposed to, because they model behaviors and model practices that can encourage students to learn or can encourage students to thrive. So if we have a class that's working on activity to provide mentorship to fairness of our district, they need to travel to North, they need to travel to South, and they need to meet with the appropriate age groups. And when they're traveling to do this, now they're in a position in which they are losing out on their other academic time. And the one thing that I've found over all my years of education, when you have the model students that you want to have exposed to the elementary children. They're involved in your fine arts activities. They're involved in your co-curricular activities. They are NHS persons. They're oftentimes involved in student council. So they're already spread pretty thin. So if we have those classroom leaders, we'd certainly like to see them have a convenient opportunity to visit the classrooms, to share what they know, and to do some demonstrations for young children. And the last bullet there is of academic advantages: develop a community school, and that doesn't mean just geographically. That means developing a community within the walls of the building as a pre-K through 12 community, and then from that community school that extends outward through involvement with our parents, and then also with involvement with our community members. But its start is within the walls of the building. There are additional advantages of option 2 and the reduction in total square footage to maintain. We've reduced the duplication of areas, so it's shared spaces. Gymnasium, your music rooms, playground areas are all shared. There's potential for shared service preparation space while maintaining separate serving and dining areas. So with the kitchen size in the current secondary building, all food can be processed and prepared there, and it can be distributed to the elementary building through a corridor that would attach to the elementary building. And there might be a small prep area, but there'd definitely be a serving and dining area within the elementary building. All children at one site, and for some families this provides a parental convenience. If they have appointments to go out of town or leaving early on a weekend, rather than picking up children at 2 different sites, they pick up children at one site. The transportation time to and from school would be reduced through the elimination of shuttles to efficiently work with the number of students that we have. We have buses that will transport children to a location. They'll wait to meet another bus. They'll exchange children, and the buses goes on to complete their bus routes. So, one example is children in the Kensington school building, if they're not going to walk to their residence, they'll get on the bus and they get bused to Hoffman. They will meet a bus that comes from Barrett. They'll exchange students and then start distributing students back toward the Kensington area again. And the same thing happens with Elbow Lake and Barrett on the north side. So by eliminating that shuttles, the buses would run from the one elementary site and disperse or pick up children throughout the district without the use of the shuttles. One of the things that weighs heavily on my mind as an administrator, and I know it's on the mind of board members also, is the state revenue is not keeping up with increasing costs of operation. And the operational efficiencies of one building would provide the district an opportunity to experience savings in how they manage their day-to-day operations. They manage personnel better, and would allow the district to go forward. With the increases that the state has been providing, our district currently needs to look for efficiencies. They need to look for ways to become more efficient in providing services, and personnel costs for the district are typically going to be in about the range of 75%. So if the district can't find ways to save money and become more efficient, it would mean a reduction in staffing is where that cost would come. So this is something that provides a buffer for the district. It would allow them to the $500,000 savings. The conservative estimate would provide an opportunity for some savings that can be continue to be spent on programming. And then the last bullet here is proximity to neighboring districts. Across the state of Minnesota, we see districts that are becoming too small to operate. They can't maintain their buildings. They can't pay staff. So there is a potential into the future, and we wouldn't know how far into the future that is, that some of our neighbors might discontinue offering education within their community. And our board members and I would like WCA to be the school of choice. We'd like to see this as the place where individuals would aspire to come if a school could close. We'd also like to provide an education for our children that seems attractive to neighbors. So even prior to that, if we have neighbors or people from other communities that see some of the great things that WCA has done and will continue to do, that maybe we might draw some students through open enrollment to increase our revenue. This slide shows our preschool enrollment currently. So our preschool students, we have 56 students that are 4-year-olds between our north and our south site. With 3-year-olds, we have some interest in the 3-year-old program, but it's not something that our parents and community members have really engaged into this point, and we would like to see that grow with appropriate spaces provided for them. So our preschool enrollment, just with the 4-year-olds, gives an indication that our enrollment is continuing to maintain, and with the students that would be added that aren't involved in our 4-year-old program, it would put our enrollment, right at the level of what we've been accustomed to in our elementary and high school. This is an elementary enrollment chart that shows our class sizes for south and for north. North is in red, south is in gray, and the black is the combined. So just as a first example, kindergarten has 45 students at north, it's got 30 at south, it's got a total of 75 that are in kindergarten. Now, when we look at that, we look at, okay, what are the class sizes there? So, at 45, we have 15 students in 3 sections. It might vary by 1 or 2, and at south, it's the same thing. But if we look at what happens if we go to one site, we have across the top, you'll see a K, you'll see a 1 option A, 1 option B, and you'll see a 2A and a 2B and a 3 and a 4. So with north, we're looking at, as you go now vertically down the column, north would have 3 sections of 15, south has 3 sections of 15. So if we combine and we go from 5 sections to 4 sections, those class sizes would be at 19, 19, 19, and 18. So the concern is by many is that if we combine sections by going to one site, that those class sizes grow dramatically. So you can see that, they go from 15 to 19. So for a kindergarten program, having class sizes that are under 20 are still very legitimate and functional class sizes for our children. When we go to first grade, north has 38, so that'd be 19 and 19. South has 14 or is 28, so we look at 14 and 14. So if we combine that and stayed with 4 sections, the size would be 16, 16, 17, 17. But if one section was eliminated, that would put the district at a position of having 22 students in 3 different classrooms, 3 different sections. So again, at grade 1, 22 is a very acceptable number for a first grade size. And then with second grade, the same type of philosophy goes through. There are currently 3 sections. 3 sections at one site would be 16, 16, 17, or at grade 2, it would be 24, 25. Now that kind of pushes the limit to be 24, 25 students in a second grade classroom. Still manageable, but when we look 2 years out, those students would no longer be second graders, they would be 4th grade students. So sizes in 4th grade of 24 and 25 are definitely manageable sizes, but there's a factor that comes into play here that I'm always sure to point out is that when we look at the size of a classroom and the number of students in the classroom, it's not always contingent just upon the numbers of students. It can be the makeup of the students in the classroom, and teachers will tell you that there are classroom groups that are just a little more difficult to keep on task. Some students need a little more intervention, some need a little more instruction, and oftentimes that comes from a specialist in the room or a paraprofessional, but it does impact the entire class. So when we look at separating classes, the district here will not look only at numbers, but they'll also look at the makeup within the classroom. So now we get to 3rd and 4th grade, and the same thing holds true as you look at 4 sections between the 2 different schools currently. If you divide that up into 3, very manageable numbers of 20 to 21 students in each of those sections. Secondary school enrollment, we have a pie chart here that shows the enrollment of our students in grades 5 through 12 in this building. And if if you look at the low ones, there are seniors in the upper left, which would be like at the 11 o'clock area. We have 50 seniors. Look at 9 o'clock. Our sophomores have 51. Those are too small classes. And you look at the others, and we're looking at low 60s, mid 60s, up to 76 with our eighth graders. That's at 5 o'clock on that pie chart. So our total number of students that are in the second building, we have currently 501 children in the building. There's a demographic study that the district consulted with School Finances. School Finances is an organization that gathers data either from the state demographer, state legislature, and then they put that information into a format that districts can use. So one of the things that the board did previously is they requested a demographic study to see, okay, what is happening with the enrollment, what will be happening with the population within the school district as we go forward. So the summary that was provided by one of our staff members that reviewed that survey, it indicates the overall population of the district is projected to increase over the next 5 years. The youth population of the district is projected to increase over the next 5 years. Enrollment has increased by an average of 8 students each of the last 6 years, so WCA is seeing enrollment growth. And the last 2 years, we've seen an increase of 47 students and 15 students. So 47 is quite a jump in 1 year, and that would be nice to see on a regular basis. But we can expect to see continued growth or maintenance of current enrollment going well into the future. A key figure here, each of the last 6 kindergarten classes were larger than the graduating classes. And it does say that West Central area has 50 students enrolled in the pre-K program. Well, we actually have more than that. When you look at pre-K, if you look at our 3-year-old and a 4-year-old, we have substantially more than that. But we do have 56 students in the 4-year-old program between our 2 buildings. This slide has demographic data for our grade level students. It begins in 2018-19 and it goes through 2020-28. So when you look at the figures there, as we go forward, that line graph going across and the total numbers on the bottom of the slide give a clear indication of where our enrollment has been and where it's going. So the table at the top begins with 2018-19 and goes forward. The bar graph at the bottom begins with the year 2012, 2013 and moves forward. So you see a modest increase there, and then you see a maintenance of enrollment. The rest of the way out as it's projected to 2028. Now, when we look at facility renovation or a new construction facility, and whether it's one site or maintaining 3 sites, we're looking at making a decision, or the board's looking at making a decision, or the voters through an election are making a decision that doesn't go to 2028, 29. It goes, another 40 years at least beyond that. So a decision that is made has to be made not only for our current needs, but actually attempting to project or anticipate what will happen, another 4 decades from now. The other part of the survey, we make a transition now from elementary opportunities to secondary school projects. And the board has some goals here to make WCA a school district of choice, something that might be somewhat of a magnet school that would draw others. So they want not only to be something that others might aspire to attend, but we definitely want to provide exceptional opportunities for the WCA students. The needs of our students are varied. It's a very diverse group, and just as some families for years have thought that the 4-year program or the doctorate program is the ideal opportunity for their children, we have those children here. We also have students that really aspire to head toward a technical field, so they're looking to a 2-year program to get some training to put them into the workforce. We also have examples of students that just have this idea that I want to get a good education while I'm here at WCA. I want to learn some skills that can be immediately put to use in the workforce. I want to be employable at a very good income. And we do have people within our school district that will hire well-trained individuals who come out of the West Central Area School District, and they would go directly into the workforce. So to meet the needs of all those students, moving from those that want to enter directly into the workforce to those that are seeking some level advanced program, we need to provide the things within the district that meets the needs of all of them. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to expand the classrooms and labs to support STEAM, and STEAM is the acronym. It stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. So those areas we're looking at expanding some spaces, and we're also looking at expanding for career and technical education, and combining them together. And you'll see students that have goals that are very diverse, that work very well together in those STEAM labs and also in career and technical education. We want to update the Library Media Center as a place where small group activities take place, probably make it into more of a casual appearance setting, and make it a place where students can really function and converse and collaborate well in that area. We'd like to expand the fitness space for the school and community use. The current fitness area is quite cramped, so when our physical education teachers want to do fitness activities, they can't all manage into one space. It becomes a supervision issue, as some are in the gym and some are in the fitness area. So the other thing here is for our students, as they're attempting to improve their abilities and their performance within the sports area, and they spend time with the summer speed and strength. Again, that area is quite crowded, so we want to expand that area and provide equipment in there that will not only for the athletes but for the general education students, in which they would then be looking toward establishing lifelong fitness activities that would help them stay out of the doctor's office, provide them a long and healthy life. And the other thing we'd like to do with that area is to provide community use. So there's a lot of concern about safety within building and who gets in and who doesn't. We would look at providing access to that space to individuals who register, provide them either with card entry or with a code to get in, and then they would be able to use our facility during non-school and non-event hours. And then also update the outdoor athletic fields, and I'll speak more specifically to that one in just a bit. So when we look at the STEAM and the career and technical education area, the proposal right now is to add a section onto our building in the shop area, which would be 40 by 120, and that'd be 4,800 square feet. And within that area, it would impact our industrial technology area. It would impact our VOAG education, impact our welding, our auto mechanics, in which they provide spaces in which they're better suited for the instruction. And they'd also look at modernization of the shop to make it more look like a current industry model. We'd add equipment for technical education and curriculum expansion. And then the STEAM area would be an addition to the building, 3,400 square feet, which would be 2 labs and 2 meeting rooms or collaborative meeting rooms, and that would be placed in the close proximity to the current science area on the edge of our building. And then one thing that our Family Consumer Science Department has, our FACS program. They have a number of kitchen units, but it would be appropriate for us to make one of those a commercial culinary unit to provide our students an opportunity to see how a functioning kitchen for a restaurant or large facility would operate. In the fitness space, I did address this to some degree, but into that fitness space would be some expanded equipment, moving equipment further apart. So we have an opportunity for students to work without that crowdedness, increase or improve air quality within there. But we'd also be looking at adding cardiovascular equipment, which would be like treadmills, elliptical machines, exercise bikes, and those kinds of things that would go into that facility. And then update athletic fields. The site at Barrett was, constructed in 1995. Fields were developed. Some have been improved since then, but there are fields that are lacking adequate seating or quality seating, dugout storage and fencing. Drainage of some of our ball fields needs to be improved to eliminate the standing water, so would be a change there. Probably the thing that would hit the district the most as far as a financial investment would be an 8-lane all-weather track. We have some athletes that perform quite well, and they train on that facility, but that track would permit WCA to host events and also provide them a better space to train and to improve upon their performances. And then it would also add field event areas and equipment for the track program. This is a document that will show in your survey. There are two that show financial data such as this. So it shows a tax impact, and it shows a tax impact for option 1 and option 2, and it shows residential categories: commercial, industrial, ag, homestead. Ag homestead is that is the home, the garage, the house, the garage, and 1 acre of land within that area. And then the ag non-homestead would be the farmland beyond that first threshold. So it shows the various amounts of the tax impact based upon property classification. And this slide had a lot of information. It was difficult to see at the public meeting, so the next slide just pulls out some of those. It's the same information, but it's easier to view when we have the public presentation. So it just replicates what was on the previous slide. This slide shows the estimated tax impact for different levels of support, starting at 29.7 million to 35.8 to 38 to 42. So it shows the ranges of what the cost would be from what would be the low end for the investment up to, for these projects would be the high end. And then again, the next slide was created primarily for public presentation. We're just pulled out a couple of those options from the previous slide. And this wraps it up. We've had 2 meetings so far. We met in Barrett on December 2nd. We were in Hoffman on December 5th. We have 3 meetings coming up: December 9th North, December 11th South, December 12th Wendell Community Center. And I encourage you to attend one of these meetings. The information provided within this slide presentation, the information provided in the survey gives you, initial information, but to engage in conversation or hear what others have to say, it's definitely a benefit to attend one of those meetings, to be an active participant, and to ask questions. So, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to receiving a large number of surveys, so the board and I can make a determination on what is best for the district. But thank you. Thank you again for taking the time to watch the slide presentation. I sincerely hope that you found information that was valuable to you. As I stated in the introduction, we want this to be a preliminary activity for you. We really would appreciate your attendance at one of the public meetings. And on December 9th, we have a meeting at North. December 11th will be at South, and December 12th will be at the Wendell Community Center. So each of those meetings starts at 7 p.m. And the first 2 that we've had have had a number of questions, a lot of community participation. So please be in attendance, and by all means, the survey that you receive either online or in the mail, please complete that survey and provide the school board with some direction on where they should be looking in the future for meeting the needs of the students of our district. Thank you.